Hello, everyone. Today I'm having a chat with my friend here, John Estrada, who used to be the U.S. ambassador to Trinidad up until January
20.
20, January 20th, 2017. Um, and so we're just going to talk a little bit about the crime situation here in Trinidad and just wanted to hear his thoughts on what's happening and what should we be doing differently. So it's been about a year
Sure.
since you've left in your official capacity. And I just want to have your sense of whether you think things have deteriorated or have things improved.
Fair question. I would say since I left, I've been following the news here extremely closely. I feel very vested after having spent just about a year here,
Mm-hmm.
and I must say that I am getting more concerned than I was um, in 2016. I'm more concerned what I saw happen in 2017. Of course, to me, it has gotten a lot worse.
Yes.
From tuning into your news media, I do streamline into the news back in the U.S. and it's getting worse. There seems to be an indifference now towards violence. It's not unusual to hear of a little kid getting killed or a grandmother getting killed brutally, throat slit, and people are going about their normal business. A few they will complain, but there seems to be an indifference. One is, I think there should be a massive outcry to what's going on. So I think it has gotten worse from my perspective. I will say that I have seen lately that the police see the detection rate probably has picked up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much it has picked up.
In terms of the statistics,
Yes,
yeah.
but it seems you're hearing of a lot more arrests here lately. But I'm sure it's probably still pretty much down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm shocked what's going on, the indifference to it.
Right. So I'm happy that you, would agree with me and also with the statistics that it is getting worse because actually, and I just will read for you that we've had, as of today so far, 487 murders, whereas for the whole of 2016 we had 463. So we're ahead of last year, and we still have a couple of days left for the year to finish. And you always hear in many countries, not just Trinidad, this sense that people have that when the economy is taking a dip. I mean, ours is not just taking a dip. We're, in my view, in a much longer term stagnation type scenario than just a recession. But anyway, a lot of people would suggest that this is an economically driven problem. My own view is that there's probably an element of that, but it certainly isn't the underlying cause. Because back in 2008, let me just read for you here that our murder rate was 550. So it's higher than it is now. It was higher then.
With a booming economy.
With a booming economy before the global financial crisis hit. So clearly, and the kidnapping rate then so we had 0 kidnappings last year, 7 this year, and back then we also had higher numbers of kidnappings. So back then, for sure, it was not related to the economy.
Right.
Now one can argue that it might be related, but I want to suggest that if that is a contributing factor, it is not the largest factor. What would be your comment on what are the factors contributing to this?
So first of all, I'm glad to hear you say that you think the economy might be a part of it. I agree with you totally. It's a part of the problem, but it is not the only part of the problem here. There are many other reasons. I will say the leading cause is the breakdown of the family unit, number one. a lot of single parents, or even if you do have two parents, there's a lack of parenting. They're not holding their kids accountable, not teaching them the responsibility, the values. So I consider that, just like I did when I was here last year, as the number one factor. Number one.
Okay.
What you're teaching your kids in your home.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you following up with them in school? Find out what's going on with them. Are you monitoring their social media stuff? Are you looking to see who their friends are? Are you making sure they get back home at a certain time, or you just let them stay out till 2 or 3 in the morning? So that's the breakdown in the family unit. The economy, small part of it. I think corruption. Some folks would overlook corruption because they probably don't see the tie between the
white collar.
Yes, but there is a tie.
Of course, there is.
Right. When the youngsters, the 16, the 17, and I've seen some unfortunate news. 15 committing crimes. One got killed here recently. I think he was shot in a store. And some people, there was an outcry. They are looking at the folks in high positions. Some of them are committing some serious crimes, and they are reaping big benefits. They're getting billions of dollars. Are they going to jail? No, they're not going to jail. Most of them are getting away with it. All of them, probably for the most part.
Have you ever heard of anybody being tried and convicted of corruption in my country, in your country, in Trinidad and Tobago?
I haven't heard any in a while.
Okay.
So that's a factor. So these young kids, they're seeing this happening, and they're saying, well, if this educated individual has all these degrees and they could do this and get away with it, it's an excuse for me to do the same thing. I may not get as rich as them.
It's an excuse. Therefore, I have a role model to not abide
exactly,
by the law.
And you said it, role model.
Yeah.
So that's a part of it. I think once you start locking some of these folks up at a high level that's been committing these crimes, you lock them up, you will see probably a little turnaround in how the lower level criminal activity is conducted.
Exactly. I think anytime you have a penalty being meted out, it would dissuade people from would-be perpetrators.
Right.
But the last time I recall anybody being tried and convicted and locked up for corruption in Trinidad, I was in maybe primary school or high school, I don't remember, but it was a judge. That was about 30 years ago.
Right.
I mean, and we know in the past 30 years, you spent about a year here, you would have seen and heard evidence of other cases of corruption. For example, how many people are awaiting extradition to the U.S. based on corruption and fraud and so on. And none of these people are held accountable, ever. And each government that comes in, the last two governments that we've had, the present one and the current opposition, came in on an anti-corruption platform that we will extradite and we will weed out corruption and we will deal with those and hold them accountable. And I've not seen it happen.
Right. So I mentioned corruption, the breakdown of the family unit, the economy, and there's also this attitude which some young people have because they've been given everything for the most part, be it government subsistence or their families are so wealthy you just shower them with whatever it is, so they don't know what hard work is. So there's this attitude of entitlement. I should not have to work for anything. I'm used to getting it free. That's going to have to be. That will require a culture shift.
A cultural shift.
Yes,
for sure.
So that's a part of it also. The young kids are looking at easy money.
Yeah.
Again, they look at the high-up officials that are committing corruptions, and then they look at the role models that they have in their communities. The big gang leader, making millions of dollars, doing stuff illegally, and they recruit these kids. That's their role model.
Exactly.
Okay? So that's another part of the problem right there.
Positive role models.
Yep.
They don't have enough.
They don't have enough.
Yeah.
So what needs to be done to address this crime?
That's
issue?
what I was. My next
Yes.
question. So you preempted there. But yeah, what do you think we need to do? I mean, obviously it's a complex problem.
Very
Obviously,
complex.
it's a problem that has not arisen overnight.
Yep.
So clearly, the solution has to be quite multifaceted and complex as well, because it's not a simple, straightforward problem. What are your ideas on what the solutions are?
A few ideas. First one has to do with accountability at home, parents holding the kids accountable. That's where it starts. It must start right there. Government has a role to play. The private sector has a role to play. They must partner. I firmly believe that. While I was here, there were a few private businesses that were involved in the communities. They're trying to make a difference.
Yes.
I still say more of them should try to make a difference because again, they play a part. That's their consumers. They're doing well. They're getting rich off of the consumers, and they need to help. They need to help provide opportunities. And I'm not just saying to give everyone jobs, but invest in the community, community center. The people that have these big jobs. Part of their responsibility, I think, is to be that role model, mentor, coach, teacher. So more people have to volunteer to do this. Government cannot do it by themselves.
Of course not. But we do have I would say we have a relatively strong NGO movement here in Trinidad, and the development banks as well, the IDB in particular, does quite a bit of good work here in the vulnerable communities. And you do have corporate involvement. Yes, one can always argue that you can do more. Now, it's hard to then justify to the CEO of a private enterprise who has to spend more and more money every year on security and on crime prevention for his own business, and then you're asking him to spend more money on helping the poor and the vulnerable.
So my answer to that is that CEO, he or she, would not have to spend so much on security and stuff if they were to invest more in the community and help pull some of these kids away from that type of behavior. So
it's
overall,
a cyclical.
Yes. Yeah. So it would help. It would help them in the long run.
It will.
I think most kids and they are kids. Some of us would want to say they're growing up. They're 15, 16. They're really kids. I remember myself at that age. I was just a little kid. Just bad influence. I don't think the majority of them get up every day and say, I'm going to just go in here and rob someone or kill someone or whatever. I don't think that's their mindset. Granted, there may be 5% of them that have that type of attitude, but we should not paint all of them as having that attitude.
No, I agree.
So I think if kids have activities, especially that vulnerable age, community centers, whatever it may be, they have food in their bellies, they have a roof over their head. I think for the most part, the majority of them will not want to go do these things.
Well, so some of it is economic related and poverty related, but some of it is also narco related.
Big time narco related.
Right. Sometimes I wonder, based on how low our production level is right now in oil and gas, I wonder if we are more a narco state than a petro state. But what about the role of the state itself and the role of the protective services and so on? What is your sense of?
So my sense is the state has a responsibility to provide security for its citizens.
Which
that is broad. First of all, control your borders. Don't allow. You do whatever you can to mitigate those, minimize it. Those folks that's bringing in narcos into the country.
Mm-hmm.
Big job.
Of course.
You got a lot of porous borders.
Right.
They have to deal with that. the police service, which I had an issue with while I was here, you need leadership. Now, since I've left, I have read, I keep up with the news where there was a shake-up in a couple of the divisions, I think they call it. And I think a couple of them had an answer to what's going on in the division. The police service, the police need to be held more accountable, and I don't care what anyone says, it all starts at the top. The leadership sets the tone on what sort of organization you're going to have.
Right.
It starts at the top. Some
Meaning
people,
the government and
okay.
from the Prime Minister all the way down, right?
But whoever runs the police service, they have a responsibility to make sure that force is professionalized. I look at how your police service here is structured. The government, I think there's such a big separation. They don't really have too much of a role in who becomes police commissioner or division commander or whatever. There's a separation for obviously a good reason.
Right.
But it starts at the top. The leadership sets the tone on what sort of organization you're going to have.
True. But
So,
not just the leadership of the police service, the leadership
the whole
country.
Yes, again, the government, the state has a role to
exactly.
protect its citizens
Exactly.
and provide certain things. So they have to find a way of working together. The police service needs to be more professionalized. We saw that in the U.S. also. I saw this when we first started our TSA. If you don't have
TSA.
Yes,
My favorite people.
Yes, if you do not have educated, professional type people, they behave badly. And there needs to be an investment in the police service. Investment to me means you raise your quality of the type of individuals that you're bringing into the police
Who
service.
qualified to be
You raise
included.
you raise the standard.
Raise the standard.
Okay, there should be education should play a big factor. Some folks seem to think it should not. It should play a big factor. If you have a well-educated force, they're going to be more professional. They will want to do a better job. And I will always roll back a lot of times. You hear me talk about my Marine time. When I first went in the Marine Corps, we did not have a professionalized, really. We used to take all sort of folks in we had folks that the judges would tell them, you're going to jail for 5 years or you join the Marine Corps. It's a drill. And we had people like that in the services, and we had a lot of problems.
You will, yeah,
okay?
I can see that.
That used to happen.
Right.
The police service, they need to raise their standards in recruiting. They should have a high bar, should be a high bar, education, whatever that may be, but somebody needs to sit down and study that. And then you have to invest again in the pay. If you're gonna have
and the
compensations, yes. If they're not getting compensated well, they are vulnerable to corruption, and you do have corruption in some parts of the police service. Not all of it.
Yeah.
You know, every
You mean in
organization.
Trinidad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every organization have 5, 10%, 15% that behaves badly. They all do. You have it here. They're not paid well. You got all that money, narco money running around. Okay? So they look to compensate. So you have to look at a quality force by one of quantity. You always hear, put more police on the street, put more boots on the street or whatever. Well, if they're not unprofessional and they're not committed and dedicated to the work, it doesn't make a difference how many you put out there. Okay? Yeah. You can have a few that's committed and you put them out there. So that's an investment that needs to be made. Another angle, it takes time, long term. Police interacted more with the community instead of only showing up when there's a crime.
When there's a problem, yeah.
That is what you see quite a bit.
Right.
There's no relationship. If you build a relationship, police are there all the time. They get involved in activities with the young kids, be that role model for them.
Right.
You start influencing a generation. It's going to take some time. what I quite frankly see here, and I'm sure there may be pockets where the police are really involved in the community. The police only shows up when something goes wrong, and they leave.
So the relationship is.
So you have to have that relationship. So that's one way of fixing it. Also.
Well, what about? Okay, so I will throw you a curveball here. I believe that one of the risks that we are not fully addressing, we're probably not even discussing as widely as I would like us to, is the whole issue of Venezuela and the amount of weapons that is circulating in Venezuela that we know is coming over here into the Caribbean, not just Trinidad. And even we've seen on the media how many times we've had Venezuelans apprehended with weapons on. I mean, to what extent do you see this as something that is going to continue to get worse and drive higher crime, or are we dealing with it?
That's a significant part of the problem. The weapons and the narcotics that's coming in from Venezuela. It's a significant part of it.
How do we deal with that?
How do you deal with that?
This is 20 million people 6 miles away from us.
While I was here, one of the things that I was championing was how to help Trinidad and Tobago secure its borders. If you secure the borders, you're going to cut down on those illegal movements of people, weapons, drugs. It involves, again, there's some scanners that we gave, the United States government gave to Trinidad and Tobago. Those scanners was given to this country before I got here. And I put a big push.
For the airport?
Scanners for looking at all the cargo that comes in.
Oh, the cargo, so on the seaports.
At the seaports. So it would be easy to look into those big containers and see what's in there. As far as I know, those scanners are still not up and running. So during all this time, the criminals know this. So they have a free pass on how many getting their weapons. They may get caught with some when somebody inadvertently stumbles on a container. But for the most part, those containers are not scanned properly. But my country gave 4 scanners.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm a criminal out there. I know Trinidad and Tobago scanners are not up. I would be reaping benefits and be pushing my stuff in right now.
Right.
So that's part of the problem. That's part of securing your borders. And you will cut down on the weapons and ammunition and the drugs that's coming in.
So I obviously this makes me wonder, why is it it's taken so many years and these scanners are still not up and running?
Well,
is it rocket science? Is it that there might be some vested interests that are very much against these scanners being okay?
Of course.
So then how do we deal with that?
There will be all sort of arguments on why you shouldn't use the scanners, and those scanners are used in a lot of our ports. We had a big bust years ago of some stuff coming in from Trinidad and Tobago that was busted up in Virginia.
Was that last year?
No, it
was 2015?
It was a few years.
Oh, it was a few years? Okay.
So they work. And they would help this problem that you have right here.
So then...
You also have to have, I don't mean to cut you off,
no.
is a dedicated gun unit. Because the problem here is so significant. And I know from my time here that the U.S. government have invested in trainees, policing, to train people to how to track and get these weapons off the street. So you need to have a dedicated gun unit. Barbados has one, and they have been they have been much more successful at dealing with their crime problem. But you need to have a dedicated gun unit. This is something we were working on here.
Barbados has one. How come we don't have one in Trinidad? And how come we don't have our scanners working? Is there some force that is preventing these things from taking place?
I'm a pretty blunt guy. I said yes.
Yes. Okay, good.
Okay, I'm pretty blunt.
So then how...
There are people, it's not in their best interest to see these things work, to see these things happening. this. That's what you call the high-level corruption. I don't know where it ends.
And where it starts.
Exactly.
And so, to what extent, though, is then the leadership, political leadership of this country accountable and responsible for these things, these shortcomings? And
So,
to what extent is your government putting pressure on our government to do these things? Because it has implications for them as well.
it does have implications for us. Obviously, I don't know much about this new government that we have at home, what the relationship is. I'm not in the embassy anymore. I know what we had in the past. So we recognized it was in our best interest to do as much as we could to help Trinidad and Tobago with this problem because it directly affects us.
Right.
It's a great investment.
Of course.
I don't know if a present government feels this way. I don't know what their policies are.
Right.
As far as government accountability on this, the government and the opposition, I was reading and watching the news. I think there was a bill that came before Parliament that was shut down. No, not FATCA. It had to do with crime.
Oh, okay.
Just recently here.
Okay, they shut down on everything.
So I don't know the details, and so don't really.
This is one that was amending the.
It's something to do with combating gangs.
Okay.
I think the opposition, and it could be wrong, wanted it for 2 years, and I think the government wanted it for 4 years.
Okay.
They couldn't agree, from what I understand, and the bill never passed.
Okay.
So it showed again the past government, the present government must put aside and do what's right for the country.
That's what a leader and a statesman would do.
That's what they need to do.
Yeah.
So this bill failed. So you can't enforce probably some of the laws that you have on the books, and you can't put new ones on to go after these criminals.
Right.
From what I heard, and I saw it in the news, read it in newspapers, and again, you don't believe everything, but I think there was some truth to it. I heard the gang leaders in the country celebrated because they felt we're good to go.
Yeah.
The government can't even come together to do something to combat us, so they won. And this is what these young kids are looking at.
The young kids and the gangsters and the criminals,
that's what they're looking at.
The fact that we pretty much have a leadership vacuum, in a sense.
They should have been able to work together and do what's best for the country. So now, we're talking about Trinidad and Tobago because there might be someone out there that's going to say, well, look at the problems you got. We're not talking about my problems. We're doing an interview here.
Yeah.
We got problems.
Of course.
Okay,
We all do.
Yes, we got some serious problems too.
Yeah.
But government not working together.
Yes.
When the government and opposition not working together, this is what you have. You get to the point where you end up having a failed state. You're not taking care of the needs of your citizens.
Do you think that's where we're headed?
And I have to tell you, I run across so many Trinis, and I had spoken about possibly looking to want to move back here to say, John, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So many. Well-to-do, some of them not well-to-do. They said, we don't know what the country's going to be like in a few years. We've got to have an exit strategy.
Yeah,
and
especially when you have children.
That is not good. That is what I'm hearing, and you're saying it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
And I, as always, again, the politicians need to really find a way of working together.
Well, you see, you use the right word. You use the word politician as opposed to leader, as opposed to statesman. I think our problem is we have politicians, we don't have statesmen, we don't have leaders. And I think that's the crux of the problem because you spoke about it at the beginning. I mean, it boils down to leadership, not just of the police service or the institutions, but leadership of the whole nation. And I think from one government to the next, I'm not seeing that level of leadership being demonstrated, and it worries me because we keep wafting from one party to the next, and I just feel like we really are not making any progress. And what's left for Trinidad?
So I'm watching that you're in a process right now of selecting a commissioner of police.
Right.
I think that process is ongoing.
Right.
I follow it closely.
Right.
And I think it's down to 3 finalists
Okay.
for the position. Former National Security Minister, I think Gary Griffith is one
Right.
of those.
Mhm.
The current acting police commissioner, Stephen William, is one of those. And I forgot who the other individual is. I don't think I know the other individual.
Okay.
You need a permanent commissioner of police. And I will go on out and say this again. Things have been bad for quite some time. And when you have things that's been bad for a while under certain leadership, it's time that leadership do what's best for the country and the organization, move out of the way, and give somebody else a chance to fix the problem. I am making a pitch. For Gary Griffith. You need a new face.
Okay, as opposed to the acting,
Yes.
who's been there
Yes.
for how long?
Yes. I think since 2012.
Right.
I'm not speaking officially on behalf of the U.S. government. I'm speaking as a private citizen. No, I'm glad I can speak on that. I would say you need a new face.
Yeah, and give him a chance.
Give him a chance.
Yeah.
So, I went out there. I did go there. I said it.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't argue with you.
it concerns.
If he's qualified, why not?
It concerns me. On the high crime rate it's going in.
Oh.
I'm going to be giving a presentation to the town where I live. Those people don't know anything about Trinidad and Tobago.
Which town is this?
Freeport, Maine.
Okay.
I'm going to give a presentation in March, and I'm going to sell them the country. I'm going to make them very much be curious about Trinidad
So you're going
and
to be an
Tobago.
ambassador for Trinidad
For
and
Trinidad
Tobago to
and
the
Tobago.
U.S.?
Exactly. And I'm going to give them a really good pitch on what this country is all about. But I will also, there's so much beautiful things here. Beautiful people, beautiful scenery.
Good food.
Good food, but the country does have a high crime rate. And I'll tell the folks, like any place else, you do have a crime rate, and they're trying to fix it. But I'm going to be, like you said, an ambassador to spread about the culture of this nation. But it's very saddening with the crime. Sometimes I get emotional. I heard about the grandmother. I heard about the young kid. Somebody just comes in and kills the kid, and the grandmother, the grandfather.
And the auntie and nephew.
Yes. And a lot of talk, but things are still the same. It's getting worse.
Yeah. Well, I hope the next time you come, the news would be better. The statistics will look better.
I like to say I'm an optimist. I always am, and I think it will get better.
Yeah, I hope so.
But it comes down to holding people accountable. You must hold them accountable.
Yeah, we need to lock some people up.
You need to lock them up. There's one thing I didn't get too much into: extradition.
Oh,
I did not get into extradition. That's another way of fixing the problem.
Yeah.
Just like the folks that are high up, the corrupted ones, are not getting locked up. We got these folks, other folks that are committing crime that other countries would love to get their hands on them. The United States would love to get their hands on a couple of folks here. I don't have to name any names, but it was a big one at the airport.
Successive governments have promised to extradite.
You need to extradite some people. People need to know, oh my gosh, I'm going to get extradited to the United States, and they're going to put me in jail. They're going to hold me accountable.
Right, but John, it begs the question. If successive governments have said, we will extradite and we will fix this problem, and successive governments have failed to do that, it makes you wonder, what's really going on?
Well, hopefully they do, but that needs to happen. You need to extradite, and extradition is another good tool to send a message to people. If you want to keep doing these things, you're going to be held accountable.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, let's hope that this government does something memorable in that regard and sets an example and holds people accountable for their actions. I'm certainly looking forward to that. Otherwise, we're going to, pretty soon, like in the next month or so, you're going to see the Corruption Perception Index being released, and every year we've not been performing well.
I've been watching it.
And I think, like you said, that sets the tone for other crime. White-collar crime is not just white-collar. It has other ramifications. But I hope the next time you're here, we can have a a more positive and more upbeat discussion
Right.
about what's going on in Trinidad.
I don't know if the private sector and government and communities are getting together, but they really need to get together. We call them round tables.
Yeah,
Brainstorm. Bring people in from the government, the police,
yeah,
the private sector, the community.
yeah.
Put their brains together. What can we do to help these communities?
Yeah, I was privileged to be a moderator at one of these roundtables. We had lots of captains of industry. It was hosted by your then counterpart, the British High Commissioner, and the IDB as well was present. And I don't know that enough came of it, but I have witnessed and I have been involved in these types of discussion. I think somehow it doesn't move too much beyond the talk. And that's a challenge.
And that's where you need that commitment that it moves beyond the talk, because you have some good ideas that could come out of these roundtables.
Of course, no.
It's then
brilliant ideas.
getting them into effect.
Exactly.
Somebody has to have the leadership again.
So the leadership, but then you have to have some kind of a body, like a secretariat or the office of the Prime Minister, or somebody that is then going to execute the ideas and follow up with people and hold them accountable for, you said you would have done this in this community. Have you really done it? And that's, I think, where it falls apart. You have all the ideas and we document it, and everybody agrees that this is a way forward.
Right.
But the execution, and that has been a problem, not just with this aspect, but with many aspects in government that we hear about, that the execution is severely lacking.
So, another thing to think about with this high crime rate, this sort of environment is what terror groups feed off of. Terrorism. They move into this vacuum and they feed off of this. Now, it's a really big thing that needs to be looked at.
And that's something we already have a problem with.
Yeah. So it's looking like
you think that's going to get worse then?
If they don't get this under control, it will get worse. Yes.
And we're the number one recruiter for ISIS in the Western Hemisphere on a per capita basis. Not so. The problem is when they go to fight for ISIS, why do they come back? They should. The way I feel is if you feel that strongly about something, fine, go ahead and fight, but then don't come back. That's just my view.
True.
But so you think that kind of activity is going to get worse?
If yes, this is where these groups breed and they recruit. These violent groups, terrorist groups.
Because you have a high level of vulnerable youth.
Exactly.
And
this is a long-term thing people have to understand. You're not going to fix it overnight.
Of course,
You're not going to fix it in 6 months.
Overnight,
exactly. So it's an investment.
Right. Indeed. Well, let's hope that some of these things will be executed and make some progress. So the next time you come, we'll have a discussion that's a lot lighter.
I would look forward to
and a lot more positive.
Right.
So thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this.
To have this chat, yes, thanks.
This has been great.